Jake Weinbeck. I've seen him on Twitter. I'm not really sure who he is or if you can trust him or not, but
Yeah.
he
Take it with a
tweeted
grain
it
of
out.
salt. Yeah.
He tweeted it out, and I do want the Pistons to move on from Killian Hayes, man. I want him to find a new home and see if he can really make it in this league, man. I really do. I'm rooting for him. Whatever team he goes to, I will follow his career. Not as closely, obviously, because he's not playing for Detroit, but I would like for his time in Detroit to come to an end. Whether that's San Antonio playing with Wemby or some other team, just a team that, can maybe restore a little confidence in this kid, like just something like that. I don't know what Hami can get you on the trade market, but I would like to see him done in Detroit because I really don't think there's a role for him as a point guard on the Detroit Pistons, man. I still think there's a role where they can utilize his defense and, find a role for him on offense, similar to how they used Hami last year, finding a way for him to be effective. I think they could do that with Killian. It just comes down to, do you want to do that now with Killian Hayes, with all these other guards that show some promise?
Yeah, so I do want to tell people, take this report with a grain of salt. The guy that did report this is an NBA writer for Hoops Habit. That's a fansided.com website. So I don't know who we talked to. I don't know if that's the plan for Killian Hayes. If it is, this is what I'll say. I think you drafted Marcus Sasser. Now, whether you want to play him at point guard or shooting guard, that's debatable. You bring in a veteran point guard in Monte Morris, who has more experience, is way more under control, doesn't really turn the ball over, has an offensive game and can play defense. He's not the passer that Killian Hayes is, but I think Monty Williams is always like those veteran point guards. I mean, he had mentioned Ricky Rubio. Really loved him in Phoenix. I think Monte Morris could be that type of, maybe his Ricky Rubio in Detroit. I'm not saying that Killian isn't valuable and he's not a good player and he can't get minutes. I think he can. I just think it would be in a very short role. You wouldn't get a lot of minutes, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a game, and probably not get a whole lot of playing time, because if you look at the point guard depth, it's pretty deep. Yep. I mean, you have Cade Cunningham. You have Monte Morris, who's going to be your backup. You could argue, who's going to be my third string? Marcus Sasser or Killian Hayes? Like, I don't know. I really don't know. Unless you want to get crazy and just use Killian as a shooting guard.
Yeah, I've said it before.
That I know you have. I think that kind of takes away from what makes him a good player, because he's an NBA player. NBA players are good players. I just think if you use him as a shooting guard, it doesn't make sense because he's not a good shooter. That's not his strength. His strength is passing and defense. So I think the Killian Hayes timeline is going to happen sooner than later. Would not be surprised if the Pistons did trade him this offseason to a team, maybe just for, like, I don't know, cash considerations at this point, because I don't think you're getting a whole lot in the open market for a Killian Hayes.
Yeah, I don't know what you would. It feels like you would have to sell low with Killian Hayes at this point right now. And yeah, he's not a great shooter, but I think his catch and shoot numbers were better from the corners. I think he was shooting like in the 30s. Someone could look that up for me. That'd be awesome. But I don't know if that's true or not. I think I might be misremembering, but I thought he was a pretty good catch and shooter, at least for like a brief moment. But his defense, yeah, that's top notch. We've seen him defend point guards all the way up to 4s and 5s. I remember his second season. I think it was his second year where he kind of locked up Evan Mobley for a little bit in the post. He definitely has some abilities. He's in the NBA for a reason. I just don't really see him as a point guard anymore. I think you could still utilize his passing by putting him in that secondary playmaker role, but I wouldn't want to see him take the ball out of Cade or Jaden Ivey or even Monte Morris' hands anymore, or even really Marcus Sasser. Marcus Sasser seems to play with a lot of confidence. I know it's only summer league, but I want Marcus Sasser with the ball in his hands more than I want Killian Hayes with the ball in his hands right now.
Yeah, like I said, I'm just trying to be logical and trying to make sense of
Yeah.
why you would keep Killian Hayes on this roster. I think as a defender, he's a plus, but offensively, he's a negative. It's like playing 4-on-5 because his offensive game just hasn't. It's not with his defensive game yet. It's just it hasn't developed. It's probably developed the most since he's come into the league this season. I think he got up to 10 points a game, but I think Monty is really gonna like a veteran point guard like a Monte Morris just because he's been there. He's got a good track record. He'll be able to score points if you need him to score points. He'll be able to facilitate if you need him to facilitate. And he's just a veteran point guard that you can trust. I just don't think they're willing to be patient with Killian to be the backup point guard because that is a big role. I know a lot of people think that, being a backup point guard isn't really a big role, but it is. It's a huge role, and maybe the Pistons just don't feel comfortable with Killian being that backup point guard as of right now.
I mean, he can still develop. There's a guy by the name of Chris Dunn. He came into the league at 22 years old, more of a defensive specialist. I mean, he was a pretty good scorer when he played at Providence, but another guy, he was a top 5 pick, kind of roughly the same size at 6'3", 205. I think Killian has a little bit more height on him, especially if you throw in the hair. But, this is a guy, he's bounced around the league, started in Minnesota, played in Chicago for 3 seasons. Then he's played for Atlanta, Portland, and then Utah this past season where he averaged, in 22 games, he averaged 13 points, 5 rebounds, 6 assists with a steal while shooting 47% from the three-point line, even though he's a career 31% shooter. It was only on 2 attempts per game. But Killian can still grow, and I think that's a possible path for him. You know what I'm saying? Like being picked up here or there for that team for a season or two. It's up to Killian, like how good he wants to be. You know what I'm saying? Like he's shown that he can stay in the NBA, and he has shown that he belongs in the NBA. I think at this point it's just now developing a consistent jump shot, having confidence in yourself from game to game, because it seemed like that kind of wavered here and there. And then, just continuing to do the things you do well in the NBA, which is playing defense and setting guys up. That's what he needs to continue to focus on. And I think he'll be all right. I just think his time in Detroit is it's over.
Yeah, I do want to add some context to this because some people are mentioning his age, and yeah, he is young. So if you look into Killian Hayes' contract, he's still on a rookie deal. And the Pistons last year did exercise his club option for 5.8. He's going to be a restricted free agent in 2024, and he'll be 23. You have to look at that as well, you guys. It's not that we're bashing him for being a young player. It's more of, do you want to pay Killian that $7 to $10 million that he's probably going to be asking for? I personally don't. I think you can get a fairly good veteran point guard for around that price point. It's more of the contract when you look at it versus the player. For me personally, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I just think it's about the player too. That's all I think it is. I don't think he's a bad person or a negative person at all, but I just think we've seen enough from him, and I just think there's been minimal improvements from him in his game from his rookie year till now. If you were to show me clips like a highlight reel from his rookie year to now, unless it was a different color jersey, I don't think I'd be able to tell the difference. You know what I mean? That's just, but again, he's still an NBA player. It's just, I haven't seen enough where I'm like, yeah, dude, the Pistons got to keep him.
Yeah, like it's not so much the player, because I think a lot of people, when they're commenting on our videos or commenting on our live stream, they always think that we're talking crap about the player. I look at contract value too.
Yeah.
I think Killian Hayes, he's still on a rookie scale deal. The Pistons have the option if they want to extend him. I don't think they will. I think the Isaiah Stewart will probably get extended at some point. But you have to ask yourself, as a fan, is Killian Hayes worth that $7 to $10 million as a backup point guard on your basketball team. And they've told you, we don't think he is. That's why we traded a second-round pick for an expiring Monte Morris. We think that he's a point guard that I believe he's only 28 years old. He's still young. He has maybe another 5 to 6 years in the league, and they kind of look at him as maybe a backup point guard of the future.
Yeah, Monte Morris is, he's 28 and 12 days old. So, yeah, he's going to be in the league for a while. You're right. That's a lot of money to give a potential, basically a third-string point guard. That's eating into a little bit of your cap. You can use that money, spend it other ways at different positions because you already got Cade, you got Jaden Ivey, now you got Monte Morris. There's just no room for Killian Hayes, man. Like, I know he still has some fans in Detroit, but it's time to grow up and say goodbye to him because he's on his way out.
Yeah, I don't even think like he's a bad player. I think he just needs a fresh opportunity where he can get consistent minutes, much like James Wiseman, and get those reps. Because I think when the Pistons look at the point guard position, they know they have Cade and they know Monte is a veteran point guard that's established, that doesn't turn the ball over and make many mistakes. And I think that's what the Pistons value because you want your point guard making smart basketball decisions. Killian's a good player. It's just I think his time as a member of the Detroit Pistons isn't going to be long.